From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Going hands-free.
That's what I think really makes this great, is that you can do all this and you can focus more on just watching the planter.
We'll meet a farmer who's using technology to turn him into a maverick in the field. The Senate Ag Committee releases its plans for a new farm bill. How does it differ from the House? And are there areas of agreement?
There's pretty good elements in both of these bills that I would say would improve what farmers and ranchers have under the existing 2018 Farm Bill.
As USDA releases new information about testing conducted in the nation's beef supply following an outbreak of avian flu in cattle.
I really would be surprised if that actually gets into the meat or the food supply.
The good news that lit the cattle market on fire right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the name on the cap matches the power of one's purpose. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The results are in on testing of ground beef in states where cattle tested positive for avian flu. USDA says those results found no virus particles in the beef. AgDay's Michelle Rook is continuing to follow this story for us. And Michelle, the good news sent the cattle market into overdrive on Thursday.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. The cattle market breathed a sigh of relief after USDA announced the negative test results for H5N1 in ground beef and then reiterated that beef is safe. And a former USDA Undersecretary for Food Safety is going one step farther, telling AgDay that the virus is unlikely to be found in beef in the future. The Food Safety and Inspection Service gave the market and consumers a boost of confidence after confirming all 30 ground beef samples sent to the National Veterinary Services laboratories for PCR testing came back with no H5N1 virus particles present. This came as no surprise to Mindy Brashears, who served as USDA Undersecretary for Food Safety.
Really, your meat is essentially sterile. That's the muscle of the animal. And this virus you usually find in the GI tract or in the respiratory system. So I was not surprised that they did not find it in the meat products.
FSIS is now also testing muscle tissues from culled dairy cattle that were condemned due to systemic pathologies. The results of these tests are yet to be published but are expected soon. But again, Brashears anticipates a negative result.
In the muscle, it really should be essentially sterile when it comes off the animal. It does get contaminated from the environment, but the meat industry already takes really high precaution to prevent cross-contamination because of, foodborne pathogens such as E. coli and salmonella. And because of those precautions, I really would be surprised if that actually gets into the meat or the food supply.
So Brashears says if H5N1 is ever detected in beef cattle, that meat will also be safe, especially if properly cooked.
All the precautions that consumers are already told to cook your meat to prevent cross-contamination, that should also go a long way in killing this pathogen as well.
And she adds milk and eggs are also safe due to pasteurization. The cattle futures rallied in response to the test results after selling off earlier in the week when USDA announced the testing.
These tests are what has been holding the market down. That's been the question. Is it going to be in the beef or not? I mean, we import so much beef that gets ground up for ground beef that could have been Australian for all I know.
He says the other good news is during all this, cash cattle trade has not faltered due to tight supplies.
Earlier in the week, there was 2 different days before we knew this USDA negative test that we traded 187, kind of under the radar.
Plus, beef exports were a marketing year high Thursday morning at 22,500 metric tons, signaling international customers are confident U.S. beef is safe. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And more good news about the nation's dairy supply, which is also being tested for any signs of H5N1. USDA reporting on results of testing cottage cheese and sour cream, saying live egg tests on those products that initially tested positive for traces of the virus showed no actual live virus. Now, the FDA also announcing additional testing on milk. It showed that pasteurization on these products is effective at inactivating H5N1. The latest results reaffirming FDA's assessment that the nation's milk and dairy supplies are safe. Well, next, the FDA says it will test pooled raw milk that has been routed to pasteurization and processing to be sold. However, H5N1 remains, as Greg Dowd of the National Milk Producers Federation called it, quote, a very real animal and potential public health risk. Now, the Associated Press talking with veterinarians about it. Dr. Barb Peterson monitors more than 40,000 cattle on a dozen farms in the Texas Panhandle. She also reported on farms with sick animals, seeing some sick people too. So far, only one person, a Texas dairy worker, is confirmed to have been infected. And a veterinarian in Colorado telling AP some farmers have been hesitant to allow health officials onto their land. Dr. Peterson saying she understands workers and farmers' fears, saying, quote, you immediately think about the cows, the people that care for them, and the families that have these farms, end quote. Senate Ag leaders also unveiling their proposals for the next farm bill, and there are big differences between the House and Senate proposals. The primary differences focus on food and nutrition programs, with the Republican-led House version seeking to limit updates to the Thrifty Food Plan and redirect those funds to other areas, such as the Farmer Safety Net. The Democratic-led Senate plan does not place restrictions on the use of the Commodity Credit Corporation Authority, which the House wants to limit. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan asked Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer about the biggest challenge both chambers will face in finding agreement.
The Thrifty Food Program, if they can work a deal on that, and if they can work a deal on conservation programs. The House bill wants to leave it more to the states. They want to take some of the $18 billion that was in the Inflation Reduction Act. But Stabenow wants to keep it within the parameters of climate-smart agricultural practices, where the House Farm Bill wants to leave it more to the state. So there's some major differences there. Those will be the two thorns.
Now, Wiesmeyer says both bills improve the Title I safety net for farmers, but they are taking different paths to do so. Like the House bill, the Senate version increases reference prices. After a week of severe weather, the central U.S. saw widespread improvements in the drought monitor. However, southwest and central Kansas saw severe drought expand, including flash drought conditions that continue to take hold due to a very dry late winter and early mid-spring. That's leading to reports of very poor wheat conditions in that area and dust storms. Right now, just under 17% of the nation is in drought. That's down about 1% from last week. Chances for severe weather remain. Meteorologist Martin Lormore joins us with an update. Martin?
Yeah, a lot of active weather over the past couple of days. Things have been slowly calming down. We're not expecting widespread severe weather and tornado outbreaks like we've been having, but still some disturbances over the next couple of days are going to be expected. So that's what we're expecting for that forecast in the next several days. Things are definitely going to be staying very calm as we get into that Friday. We'll be seeing a lot of those showers and a couple rumbles of thunder across this little cold front moving its way across the eastern portion of the U.S. More of these showers moving across again the central part of the country. Now, some of these could be on the stronger side. Again, not expecting widespread severe weather, but there is that small chance for some of these storms to be on the severe side in the center part of the country for this weekend. That cold front continues its way out. Places that don't really need some rain, going to be starting to see some as we get into our Saturday overnight into that Sunday. We're already watching our next low pressure system. We'll be bringing in some snow to the higher elevations of the Rockies, Cascades, and the Sierra Nevadas. But again, center part of the country, not seeing a whole lot of that rain come Sunday. Kent Klingbeil and the snowboarder farmer in central Iowa. They're seeing where the planting depth is at for their corn and checking to see if any adjustments are needed to be made for that second planting window. Good little science bit here. I'll have more on that forecast coming up.
Heavy rains during Brazil's harvest helped to push soybeans higher on Thursday. We'll have details coming up next. And later, how many cheese balls can you eat in just a half hour? One man took to the streets to find out. Next. Corteva this week releasing its first quarter earnings. The company reporting mixed results, saying first quarter net sales dropped 8% versus last year, while seed sales grew 2%. Crop protection sales, they decreased 20%. Company leaders saying the results were largely as expected, adding the seed business delivered an exceptional performance, reflecting farmers' continued investment in its products that it says consistently deliver quality yield and value. Cattle markets weren't the only commodities seeing a rally on Thursday. Soybeans surged on weather concerns. Michelle Rook is back with more in Markets Now.
An update Thursday in the grains and cattle. John Payne with Advanced Trading is back with us. And John, looked like the grains were putting in some weather premium on Thursday.
Yeah, I think you could call weather premium. You can call it short covering. Bullish bets we've kind of seen come across the tape here, taking us up to the 100-day moving average on corn and soybeans. Soybean meal broke through it, which, a lot of talk about Argentinian port strikes, Argentinian transport strikes. There's a lot of issues I think that are, fuzzy to me right now in regards to why beans need to rally. But, in the case of markets, you look at the wheat move we saw over the last 2 weeks, we can price in higher CBOT here. The Chicago Board of Trade has been heavily shorted all year. And, this is the time of the year where we tend to move higher. Short covering is available. Now, how quickly and how much will come out, I think a lot of that will depend on what the U.S. weather looks like here in the next couple of weeks. But at this point, the premium is there. Volatility is high. So we've seen corn volatility and soybean volatility jump here.
So chart breakouts, do you think we can build on these? And will this be enough to get the funds to continue to get out of their shorts?
If we can close, above 460 on the July, I'll feel pretty good. There's gaps up, we'll call it 503 on the December and November beans up around 1250, give or take a few pennies there. I think everybody's pretty aware those gaps are there. So, those aren't decent, not a bad place to throw sales in. I'm sure there's going to be some speculators trying to do it. But in the near term, a lot of it will depend on what crop progress says next week. But in reality, Michelle, this is the time of the year for it. The farmer's busy. They don't want to sell. We saw First Notice Day really perform, where prices actually rallied into the first notice price in wheat and in corn. So that's something I take home from a bullish side that maybe supports the market.
Cattle rallied after the negative test for bird flu and ground beef, but can we continue to build on that?
Let's see what the meat does. In restaurants, indexes that we follow are really negative. And, if consumers are going to shut down something, it'll probably be that expensive beef that they're buying. Seasonally, not a great time to be selling, but can we trade $300 choice for too much longer here if the economy slows is the question.
Thanks so much, John Payne with Advanced Trading. And we'll have more AgDay coming up.
Hey, welcome back. Still talking about that severe weather outlook over the next couple of days here on AgDay. Again, seeing a lot of these weather conditions remaining ripe for the possibility for some severe weather, though luckily not expecting a widespread outbreak like we had last week. You're not seeing into that red area where we're seeing the several severe storms, just staying in this yellow area right here, but still could see some of those stronger storms, including the possibility of a handful of tornadoes. Again, luckily not expecting anything super widespread like we saw last week. And as we get into our Saturday, just a little pocket in parts of western Texas, stretching into just a little bit of southwestern Oklahoma. Unfortunately, areas that have already seen plenty of damaging winds, tornadoes, and hailstones, but there's still a small threat there for your Saturday. But it's not just the severe weather we're watching, it's also the potential for flooding out there. Granted, staying low for our Friday as this system makes its way past. You can see that's where that cold front's going to be settling for that Friday, but another system rolling through that's going to expand out into the south for our Saturday. The same area seeing that possibility for some of those severe storms on our Saturday, having a good chance for some possibility of flooding. A lot of rain will be coming down in those storms, and even into our Monday, transitioning over in toward eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas. I actually came from, going to be seeing the possibility for a lot of that flooding on Sunday. So mom and dad, you better be watching out for some of that rainfall coming down. Precipitation estimation over the next several days. You can see where that first cold front makes its way through, and then there's the second one. Again, there's that system making its way across parts of northwestern Texas and southwestern Oklahoma, seeing plenty of that rainfall, widespread 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. So again, keep a watch out if you are going to be doing anything over the next weekend. We'll be seeing plenty of rain coming down over the next several days. Jet stream showing that cold cold front making its way past. There's that next low pressure we're watching for this weekend. This is going to swing its way into the Pacific Northwest, jetting down some very cold air, bringing in some snowfall across parts of the Cascades, Sierra Nevadas, and the Rockies. That'll continue its way over, bringing in the possibility for more of these storms as we get into our Monday and Tuesday for more of the northern plains and possibly stretching in to parts of the Great Lakes as well as we get into that Wednesday. So it's just something we're having to keep our close eye on over the next several days, as we could be seeing more of those storms developing later this week. Arkadelphia, Arkansas. It's going to be a little warm out there, high 79 degrees. A couple showers could be spotting through there. Great Falls, Montana, could be seeing some snow for this morning. Watching as those skies do clear in the afternoon, high 53. Madawaska, Maine, 60 degrees.
Mavericks in the Field on Ag Day is brought to you by John Deere. Connecting your farm is easier than ever, from just the basics to being able to make real-time decisions wherever you are. John Deere has the tech you need.
Part of smart farming is being on the cutting edge of technology, and that's the idea behind a new series of reports we're starting called Mavericks in the Field. We'll be showcasing how technology is changing the industry and the farmers who are making it happen. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan kicks things off in Casey, Illinois, with a farmer who's always thinking about what's next and how advanced tech could help their family farm reach new heights.
With every pass and every turn, each move in this Illinois farm field is done hands-free.
That's what I think really makes this great, is that you can do all this and you can focus more on just watching the planter.
It's hints of automation Heath Husingay has fully embraced.
And half the time, I'll just sit sideways in here, and I don't have to worry about turning. I know if I have an obstacle coming up, it'll tell me.
This is the view from his office each spring, and it gives a hint into how immersed he is into the technology available in the tractor and on the planter.
I can watch my pops, I can watch my ground contact, I can watch all that good stuff. So it just frees me up to focus more on the actual planter itself than just focusing on driving the tractor.
Modern conveniences that have opened a new realm of realities, some that you can't quantify with a true ROI.
Some of the things that we do a little different, we're quick to embrace new theories, just embracing the unknown.
Farming on the edge of innovation is seen as risky by some, but for Husingay, it's become the norm. Instead of looking at an entire farm field, he's focused pass by pass and row by row.
With even the RTK, SFRTK systems, the ability to replicate that when I come here and plant beans next year, my beans are going to be right there. They're not going to be over here, they're not going to be over there, they're going to be right there in that row. So then it opens up my mind to the possibility of when it comes to fertilizer and the options of, I'm not building up the whole field, I'm building up that strip. I'm not going to farm this, 30 inches in between. I'm farming that right there.
He's also growing more precise in how he farms, but he's still willing to push the boundaries and try new things.
Actually, just over here on this 40, I had this wild hair. I had read this report that guys were doing skip row corn, and I thought, you know what, we're going to make this work. So I think I planted 2 rows, turned one off, 2 rows, turned one off, 2 rows, turned one off, all the way across the planter. But I wanted to adjust my pop so that it was the same as me, where I would have been planting 35,000 across the planter. And luckily, I went in there and figured out how to shut the rows off and up certain rows and lower the other ones, so that was great. I was planting 45 to 50,000 on those 2 rows and then skipping the row.
He says that one trial then brought on a load of questions.
We actually had some commercial guys call and say, hey, I think you had a problem, you're spraying the field next to it over here. You might want to go fix that. I said, oh, that was on purpose.
A wild idea that actually worked.
It made like 5 more bushel than the test, but I haven't given up on it. I think it was maybe the wrong hybrid that I tried with it. So probably gonna try that again.
All right, thanks, Tyne. Well, they're a favorite of couch potatoes everywhere. We're talking about cheese balls, and one man was just crowned a champion, sort of, next in the country. So how many cheese balls can you eat in a half an hour? Probably not as many as this guy. Check out the Cape Crusader of cheese balls. His goal to eat 700 cheese balls in just under 30 minutes, washing them down with water. Now he did it in front of a crowd of hundreds of people in New York's Union Square Park. Now why cheese balls? Well, he said the first time he had one, he decided right then and there that the food was fantastic. And along with it, he turned a food eating challenge into a creation of an anonymous superhero with cheesy hands.
I had to do it, so many people were counting on me. So despite hurling up in my mouth a little bit, I kept it down and I made the people proud, I think. But if not, sorry.
Upon eating the 700th cheese ball, he was crowned with a hat like a traffic cone, the 22-year-old saying he went home a hero and was showered with what else but cheese balls. 700 cheese balls. That's an awful lot. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.